This is Chris. I'm a criminal justice major, and I had a question regarding a little bit of UN history. A few years ago, I heard about an investigation into corruption regarding a certain oil for food program. I never actually heard the results of that investigation. I was wondering if you knew what the results were and what they actually revealed.
I'll take that. Oil for food was absolute nonsense. The problem was that in the Security Council, Iraq had been put under sanctions. It was not allowed to sell any oil. It had no income. But people then started dying of hunger. And so the Security Council took a decision that Iraq would be allowed to sell oil, but all the money would go into an escrow account, and disbursements from the escrow account would be made only with the authorization of the Security Council itself. So all the contracts that were signed by Iraqis for money disbursement from the escrow account, each and every contract had to be passed by the Security Council. Now the Security Council, and the procedure was that each member, all 15 members, had to sign each contract and say, I agree that this money can be disbursed. Now, many members of the Security Council are third-class countries, but one of them is a first-class country. And that country has a huge procedure, which is called the interagency procedure. Each and every contract went through the interagency procedure in the United States. That say, a dozen ministries, including the GAO, the General Accounting Office, had to sign on before the contract could be signed. In other words, everything was approved, as far as I'm concerned, by the United States. Everything. Now, it just so happened that Mr. Saddam Hussein was smarter than the rest of us, because what he was doing was to ask people to over-invoice and get the extra money and share it partly with the people who signed the contract and partly keep the money in his own pocket to improve the quality of his palaces. And that sharing of money was done with the contract holders. And the contract holders came from Russia, from France, from the United States, etc. They are the ones who pocketed the money. Now, the accusation was that the United Nations had pocketed the money. And that's just not correct. The United Nations was only the post office, which would pick up the contract, send it to the United States and France for signature, get the signed contract, send it to Iraq, get the money, put it in the escrow account. And that was it. Now, $8 billion disappeared. That is what we are told. Out of the $8 billion, the accusation against one official of the United Nations was that he had pocketed $160,000 out of $8 billion, and it was not proved. And the second accusation was that a second official had pocketed $18,000 out of $8 billion, and that was not proved either. And so this is the sort of media hype which comes when people want to point fingers at others. And the reason why your question is interesting is that you have not heard of the end. Why would I was one of the US corporations or the French corporations or the Russian corporations, why would I like anybody to hear the end? And so it has just disappeared because we know who are the culprits, and the culprits don't want it to be known, and their governments don't want their culprits to be identified. So I hope you have an answer to a difficult question. Shall we shift back to Madison for a final question and for closing the session from their end? Madison, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Natalie, and I'm a student at FDU. I would like to know, what is the Organization of African Unity doing to eradicate the disregard of basic human rights in some African countries?
Oh, great question. Congratulations. Because really, I'm one of the people who have great respect and admiration for the Organization of African Unity, now called the African Union. And since Mr. Mbaidjol is a son of Africa. I think it's only fair that he should answer the question.
What is that the African Union is doing? I think there is, as any intergovernmental organization, the African Union is composed of a number of countries who are doing their best to particularly solve political problems. The African Union has established a number of interesting institutions, including Conflict Resolution Commission, which is actually the arm of the deployment in countries like Sudan. You know that for Darfur, there is a hybrid mission of the UN and of the African Union to protect the population and also to help reaching an acceptable solution between the parties to the conflict. African Union is also very present. We hear more of Kofi Annan's work, but behind the scenes are African Union staff who are supporting the system. And by the way, the African Union president, the president of Ghana, Mr. Kufuor, was the first to be in Nairobi during the height of the crisis in that country. So there is a number of steps that are being taken, including on foreign displacement situations where there is a commission in charge of refugee and IDP matters, and which is working with the UN and most of the operational agencies to assist and tackle the root causes of refugee flows. But again, as I said, for an intergovernmental organization to move ahead, there is a number of hurdles that they would have to tackle before moving ahead. The same, new individual members of the organization have their own problems that are part of the challenges that I cited: the deficit, the democratic deficit, the conflict, internal conflicts, the issue of impunity. All these are present in most of the African members of the Union. So you can't see by yourself the sort of challenge that the Union is in it, because their own members are I should say, sick.
I leave it to you to close this session from your end.
Thank you, Ambassador Kamal. We really appreciate the efforts you made to facilitate this outstanding conference. Director Mbaidjol, we certainly are sensitive to your time constraints and the sacrifice you made to be present with us today, and we are grateful to you for enlightening our students. Thank you to the students in TNEC for your contribution, and to our students here. And I wish everyone a good day.
And may I, on your behalf and on my own, also thank Mr. Mbaidjol, because I know that he had a very busy program today, and he got out of it because he had committed to Fairleigh Dickinson. And thank you. And please do not be under the impression that there is anything other than respect, admiration, and affection in me for a person who is truly one of the pillars of human rights in the United Nations.
Thank you.
Goodbye until we meet again.
Goodbye to you all.